Before we start the session, let's go through some housekeeping tips. The webinar is for 1 hour that includes a 15 minutes Q&A. You can post your queries within the Q&A box and we'll try and answer them. All participants will be muted during the entire session. The webinar is being recorded and will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success portal, where you will also be able to download the slide deck. Please feel free to put in your feedbacks and suggestions for the session in the post-webinar survey. The Success portal is a microlearning platform that offers free and unlimited learning to all registered users. This feature-rich platform helps you learn and use Informatica products better. Here are a few links that will help you in your product adoption journey with Informatica. Over to you, Nanette. Thank you.
Good morning, all. Thank you, Verinda, for the introduction. Before we dive into the meat of today's session, I thought the group might like a bit of background to set the stage for the best practices we're discussing today. I'm Nanette, and at present, I'm a portfolio owner here in the Informatica Professional Services Group, where for about 3 years now, I've been helping large strategic and enterprise customers in the central and western United States implement Informatica's data platform to transform the information delivery, analytics, and governance engines their businesses demand. From this chair, I get to see up close and personal how retailers, banks, healthcare organizations, manufacturers, and service providers implement the Informatica data platform within and across their business to provide the people of their businesses, their employees, customers, partners, suppliers, distributors, resellers, and the like, as well as the systems through which their people conduct day-to-day business activities with the data, information, and knowledge products needed to not just digitally transform, but to grow, change, and adapt their businesses and business activities to the realities of the pandemic era hybrid world in which we live. Prior to joining Informatica in late 2018, I spent 10 years as a product manager, developing cataloging and electronic product software and metadata frameworks for the governments, libraries, research organizations, and nonprofits, pushing the envelope of identity-based, metadata-driven content creation, discovery, and access. A logical jump for an information product designer who started her career in medical and legal publishing at the moment emerging technology was used to kill newspapers and textbooks, the lifeblood of publishers and other content providers' P&Ls, and who cut her information product design teeth on the multi-audience, multi-version, multilingual education, professional development, and point-of-care resources these same content providers use to not just survive, but transform their businesses and the new learning, reference, and inquiry marketplace in which they suddenly found themselves. It's from this perspective that I hope to offer you today a new window, that of product manager, guiding the brilliant tool jockeys and knowledge domain-based people of your organization. A product manager's window into how to successfully realize an MDM 360 anchored platform that engages rather than discourages or further frustrates your business. Starting with the worst case scenario, the thing we all fear and want to ensure we avoid, outlining 3 steps for how to avoid it and better ensure your team's success, as well as the success of the business people and systems who use the information products discovered, accessed, and delivered through your organization and its implementation of the 360 system. Closing with an example of what some of this looks like in action and ending in some Q&A time where we'll address your questions. Let's begin then with the spectrum of worst case scenarios, our fears, if you will. For after all, we're not all the same. The knowledge domains of our business and the people of our businesses are different. The specific challenges our individual businesses face and the resulting first and ongoing values our key stakeholders expect our 360 anchored systems to achieve are all unique. Thankfully, watching 20+ organizations a quarter for the past 3 or 4 years approach their unique challenges and initiatives, I and my colleagues, the technical governance and support specialists, who guide Informatica customers through their implementation experiences have found some similarities. And it's 3 of these similarities we'll focus on today. The similarity, as noted in my last slide, is fear, nervousness, and uncertainty. The whole spectrum of emotions that cause us, as tool jockeys and data geeks, to one way or another fail to interact. We fail to interact adequately and appropriately up front before we ever put keyboard to platform configuration with the business people, our business people, that is our customers, the future buyers and users of our systems. We fail to do this like a product manager would, not just before allowing the programmers to start configuring the module for the needs of their product, but before their product designers and development and epic story writers ever even put pen to paper. And this failure inevitably results in one or some variation of these 3 worst-case scenarios, as well as the accompanying cost and schedule overages, user satisfaction hits, and often explosive fires that thermometer on the last slide made us all think of. Perhaps the best way to begin then is to address these fears up front, one by one, right now. First, anyone who tells you there's one right way is an amateur at best. And it's possible their project never got off the ground. They're simply uninformed or haven't seen enough organic contextual data systems in action, let alone the learning intelligent systems that additively interact with an organization's data to move it up the spectrum from data to the information sets that, when coupled with the vocabulary of your business through your 360 information system, create the knowledge your business needs, including the identity store resulting from the data profiling, cleansing, and match merge processes your teams will put in place as part of their initial 360 implementation, and that system's subsequent, at minimum yearly, or anytime an entity is changed due to new or revised incoming sources or outgoing targets, reviews and iterates this identity store. And how about that middle one? Those mediocre implementations that some would typify by the old boiling the ocean corporate speakism. Such classification also belies a limited scope of experience and is often a mask for uncertainty and fear. True enough, as any experienced product manager will tell you, you have to start small and grow from there. But it's not a linear model of growth like that climb up a funding thermometer. It's an organic spread of growth model, like dropping a rock in a pond. It's viral like the pandemic that challenges our businesses today. Thus, the need to set expectations for their future post-implementation reviews and iterations with your business from the beginning. Reviews and iterations that, rather than distracting or interrupting your business, keep you and the 360 anchored implementations you run connected to that business. But I digress. The key point here, the identity and characteristics of the rock you drop into your corporate pond, your patient zeros, if you will, matter. He, she, they must share common characteristic with most parts of the business, and ideally, at least in the beginning, are extensible enough to reach all parts of your current business through connecting tangential relationships that allow for the adaptation and growth of the organic contextual data connected to the knowledge domain backbones that are proliferating in your business units today. We're implementing 360 after all. No matter which entity you start with, customer, supplier, or product, if you plan to realize serialized assets in the coming few years, as most automobile manufacturers and their suppliers do, as part of their transportation from car companies to mobility companies, you need to identify patient zero business units within your organization that connect in an important way to at least these 3 entities. Ideally, business units led by a strong data-driven business leader who can serve as your counterpart and advocate in the viral spread to other units. And he or she must be foundationally connected to the isness of your business in a way that allows him or her to traverse the largest geographic distribution possible of your business people, systems, and their accompanying governance landscapes. The employees, customers, partners, suppliers, distributors, resellers, and the like of your real world business. Finally, a worst case scenario we see all too often, shelfware. True enough, the people of your business may want IT competence, but they crave IT collaboration. Think only of all the sneaker nets, Excel spreadsheets, Power BI, and Tableau dashboards across your business that are siloed in individual departments that your business teams use today. Imagine what would happen if you asked them about these and helped them understand their contribution to designing, testing, and encouraging their counterparts to adopt and interact with the 360 system entities they helped create by opening up their sneaker nets to you. Think how much this would speed your efforts and ease your fears, as well as those. Envision how much goodwill and future headache mitigation this would engender if you did this before you started to configure, while you were installing, while it costs very little to change. And then what if you followed up with these same contributors, these business contributors, once the design is complete, sitting down against a known timeline with some real IT skin in the game and reviewed your designs against their asks, allowing the business to help you prioritize capability rollout against their most pressing needs. And then, once you built it, you came back and released a beta with them as the select few who helped you as your UAT testers, giving the business again, these leads in your business, the chance to express their experience bumps now, while you have budget and time to correct at least a few of those bumps before full-scale production rollout. And you know what? If you did, you'd be following the well-established and very successful playbook of product managers. Product managers like those who developed the iPod, iPad, and iPhone, as well as the Apple Music Marketplace with its discovery engine that drive the day-to-day lives of many of our business people. Now that's a model of competence almost all of us readily understand and intuitively appreciate. After all, it matches our experience in the real world, which tempers a business person's almost innate distrust of IT initiatives and engenders a common pathways to success. Heck, if you're lucky enough to start with marketing or product domains, your 360 development process would actually mimic the viral and product development methodologies that are part of those disciplines' knowledge domains. You can't get more intuitive than that. So how does one think like a product manager to ensure the positive experiences needed to garner the business engagement that results in accurate analytics and successful 360 implementations? Step 1, define your business's needs, along with the accompanying knowledge domains and appropriate patient zeros needed, those who deal with those business needs. And I like to keep this simple because just like the program maxim KISS, keep it simple, silly, we IT and data geeks learn early, as do those marketers and project managers. They just say it a little bit different. They would say, if you can't elevator speech it, marketing domain speak, or express it as a back-of-the-box product description, product manager words, then you don't know what you're building, who you're building it for, and what purpose it serves for them. Those product managers would say, if you can't, in 1 or 2 sentences, that is, something that you could communicate to a contact in an elevator between floors, express why your opinion is better than the sneaker nets they're using now for that purpose, you've lost your business people. Moreover, even if you get them initially, you can't keep them over the course of your multi-month development and its accompanying multi-year roadmap unless they immediately and repeatedly feel why they want to buy your product, use your product over that of the competitors. And no carrying a big stick and telling them they must use it after a certain date. That's not a compelling reason to buy. This lockdown, punishment-based approach we too often default to just breeds resentment, more sneakernets, those competitors, and the conditions ripe for at least one of those worst-case scenarios we just discussed, shelfware. Remember, growth isn't linear like that funding thermometer, it's viral. It's one discipline leader putting their finger in the pond and creating concentric circles of influence across the business that pull other leaders, their people, data, and passion into your growing implementation. It's a patient zero traveling across and through your organization, spreading the word of success and usefulness and how your 360 implementation is adapting in an additive way as more and more business units are exposed and garner immunity to the threats of your business is facing by joining into your 360-driven analytics and information products knowledge system. But just how do product managers and marketers that accompany them as they develop, hype, and launch new and updated information products define the needs of their business and the knowledge domains and key leaders who can best assist in the design, evangelization, and adoption of these products? As Simon Sinek teaches us product managers, they always start with why, not how or what, as us data geeks and IT people often do. For only your internal customers, your consumers, the users of your future system, in the case of 360, your business teams can tell you this. And that's best practice number one. Understand your business whys before asking how, and always before you put your hands on the keyboard to start configuration. But what does why mean to your business users? How can you ensure they give you whys that are feasible within the constraints of your 360 toolset implementations when you're not sure they even know what purpose your new 360 anchored information system can fulfill for them? And how are you supposed to know what necessary business activities in their areas are vital to overall business success? I'll give you a hint. Business people don't usually specifically ask to integrate many different sources in near real time. And they don't ask to gather in one easily accessible place in common forecast formats with common keys and a common data model the information needed to answer business questions. And they almost never say to establish a single golden record or identity store for each customer. They don't think like us. It's part of why we IT and data geeks and our managers tend to fear and or avoid them for as long as possible and then end up in a worst case scenario. I've learned from my experience as a product manager, business people state their whys more like this: to provide our most loyal customers with a best of breed purchasing and payment experience that keeps them inside our digital presence longer and reduces the rate at which customers jump out of our experience into another online retailer space to comparison shop. Or perhaps to engender better brand loyalty by following the customer's life cycle and making real-life appropriate recommendations, complete with special offers and discounts at the time of purchase, be that purchase in store or online, while browsing the shelves, making a service appointment, or at the time of sale. Or perhaps to maximize per vehicle revenue by ensuring maximum lease, rental, and resale value across each vehicle's life cycle in a way that protects the privacy of our individual customers and doesn't expose our business to excessive liability based on what our customers do in the vehicles while they have them. Or even to ensure better business continuity during the pandemic in an uncertain business climate of increasing regulation and gas prices through better supplier governance and reduced delivery fees. And yes, these are 4 real business whys I've heard in just the last 8 months in the portfolio owner chair here at Informatica. And yes, all are huge asks at best. all are uncertain and ripe for individual interpretation wise, that if left in this state present massive customer expectation management issues for your 360 implementation project. Expectation management issues that if left unchecked could lead to any of our 3 worst case scenarios from earlier and certainly disappointing user experiences. Yep, as any experienced product manager will tell you, when you engage the public, this always happens. It's to be expected. They will ask for a lot and it will be unclear. So how, when you have to talk to your customer base to understand their why, do you channel and titrate business input so that you can get what you need and don't exacerbate the IT business divide in the process? My suggestion, don't just think like a product manager, act like one. Thankfully, product managers are pretty predictable people who use a few simple tools to corral their cats. The first and easiest to use, a focus group, like the one pictured here. True enough, yours might not be this informal with people lying on the floor, but it is important to notice and to understand good focus groups don't wear suits and ties. They're more hands-on, using design thinking. They're comfortable for the participants and interactive. They're not computerized demos where you talk at people sitting around a table. They're a level playing field that encourages collaboration. So just what is a focus group to a product manager? A focus group is a research method that brings together a small group of people to answer questions in a moderated setting. The group's chosen due to predefined demographic traits, and the questions are designed to shed light on a topic of interest. In our conversation today about 360, this would be your targeted potential patient zeros, as well as a couple of their directs, such as the data stewards or owners if you have them in their knowledge domain, plus 1 or 2 second round rollout candidates, all assembled in a room with 1 or 2 of you, a leader and a note taker. Don't overwhelm them with the whole of your IT team. If you do, the business won't talk. This group assembled presented with a brief, easy to understand, and often allegorical description of the box you'd like them to think in. That is to say, the what of your 360 platform. Ideally using pictures and a minimum of text speak. Remember, you want to channel them. You want to give them space to dream and to tell you the truth. With this group assembled and set, you want to ask them open-ended, directed questions that help you narrow down these larger whys into something your 360 platform can do that meets their immediate business need. That is to say, first value, and is extensible to other domains and areas of the business. Remember, as we said earlier, you want to ask questions that help you identify the right patient zeros and knowledge domains, those that share common characteristics with most other parts of your business, those that are extensible enough to reach all parts of your current business through connecting tangential relationships that allow for the adaptation and growth of the organic and contextual data connected to the knowledge domain backbones proliferating in your business units today. And you want these to be run by leaders and number twos. Those number twos are your future system super users who are foundationally connected to the isness of your business in a way that allows them to traverse the largest geographic distribution possible of your business's people, systems, and their accompanying governance landscapes. It's important to remember, focus groups are a type of qualitative, not quantitative research. Their observations of the group dynamic, their answers to focus group questions, and even their body language can guide future research on decisions, needed analytics, planned areas of business growth or divestiture that may impact your 360 system, and controversial topics. Remember to watch and take notes on all these areas as well, not just the points you can connect to the data and IT capabilities you need to develop or roll out immediately. Dropping a rock in the pond and having it make waves is as much about the leader's street cred and influence in the organization as about his or her knowledge domains fundamental association with the isness of the business and its vocabulary. Like any product manager, you need both to achieve initial success and future viral extension. Further, these observations and user behaviors are key assumptions that will impact your system design and configuration decisions. They should be recorded in stakeholder diagrams and influence matrices, as well as your epics and user stories, as they will be vital points of reference for future adaptation and change as stakeholders grow, change, and lead the company. Remember, 360 systems are organic organisms that need to grow and change as your business and its people and its systems grow and change at the pace these things grow and change. They're not just data warehouses. Remember too, focus groups are often used in marketing, library science, social science, and user research disciplines to gauge and ensure user engagement with the information and discovery systems they provide and run. They can provide more nuanced feedback than individual interviews and are easier to organize than large-scale experiments or surveys. Pro tip, check out the web to find more on these areas of use, like library science, marketing, social service, and the templates that they may have put out there that you can adapt to your situation. Library and social science professionals especially are native sharers. They often even supply complete usage instructions for the templates that they put on the web. And library scientists are catalog and identity store information science professionals who specialize by knowledge domain. Finding the templates of a librarian, facilitating the inquiry and research needs of students training to be types of business professionals sitting in the conference room with you, those professionals your 360 system serves can be a gold mine on how to achieve better user engagement and increase user experience for a specific type of professional. Pro tip, not familiar with design thinking and focus groups? Check out LinkedIn Learning. There are a number of good free short courses that can help you develop confidence here. And a final pro tip, keep your focus groups small and as diverse, covering several readiness levels and competing viewpoints and approaches if possible, so you have a dialogue in the room. This dialogue will help you start to identify divergences and variances that are so important to consider upfront in your entity design. I've thrown a lot of words at you. Let's explore an example of how this might work in actual practice. Let's start with one of those too big, too business speak whys from our earlier slide, the one about maximizing per vehicle revenue. But before we dig into narrowing it down and making it more specific so it's executable, it's important to set the stage for your business by explaining the what of a 360 anchored information system in an accessible way, so they understand why they're here in the group and what outcomes their recommendation will impact. Best practice number 2, contextualize the 360 platform for your business. Help them understand what it does, what it doesn't do, and why you all in IT think it's so special and so much better than your older data warehouses. In my experience as a product manager, stories and visuals like the one you see here work best to kick off the focus group. Well, I've used many stories over the years to explain a data product platform that consists of a language reference, an identity store, a catalog, and the transactional systems associated with it. The one that always seems to stick with people, real people, and help them remember these systems are organic and to grow, change, and learn over time, just like they and their people and businesses do, is anything related to the human body and the interrelationships of circulation, thought, and action. Maybe that's just my healthcare roots showing, but it's always worked for me. For today, we'll use the heart and hand, walking in concert, holding hands, if you will. For that's what we want our people and our 360 anchor system to do in real life. If we're going to fire on all cylinders and achieve real business value while going viral, our main objectives, of course. The heart here represents the heart of your business, the real world, people, products, and knowledge domains in which they operate. The brain represents the representational digital world that models your real world business in the system and provides insights about it, as well as the efficiencies, digital efficiencies and enablers your business needs to grow and adapt in today's hybrid world. The 360 anchored information and knowledge product system you are implementing on top of your company's transactional systems. Your business's heart and brain are joined by a handshake, a locking of arms that allows them to move together in concert. It's the why of the business coupled with the how of the information system. That handshake is expressed by IT in its implementation roadmap and system requirements resulting from the collaboration with the business that's beginning in these focus groups we're talking about and continuing through the design reviews, UAT and beta testings, rollout plans, as well as those regularly timed checkbacks I've been talking about that allow the business users to provide ongoing feedback into the information system through which they conduct business. For the business, it results in user experiences that drive the business forward and faster and ensure adoption. It's important to know how well your IT how matches the business's why inside the what of the Informatica 360 system and execute determines both user satisfaction and or dissatisfaction in the real world and performance, extensibility, quality, and usage in the digital world. Why? Which is why it's worth a bit of time to establish a common understanding of the what of the 360 anchored system, the brain of the business's representational world, what it is and what it can do. As pictured here, the brainstem, the brain's connection to the body of the business, the transactional system, is the transactional systems. The transactional systems through which business is conducted. Those are the source and many times some of the targets for any 360 system. These are the systems that provide the inputs that are matched and merged into at least the customer identity store. If you're going all the way to serialized assets, that's for products and suppliers as well, those identity stores. The limbic system, or the center of the brain, relays information throughout the body, maintains homeostasis, ensures that it's operating smoothly, staying upright, breathing, stores and retrieves memories and information, providing the access system, the IDs, if you will, the myriad of IDs around any given object and instantation of that object, for what the right brain discovers and the left brain processes, just like the 360 identity store does for your system. The left brain, like you as a person, that's where language and numbers live and work. It's the reference decoder ring and processing engine for discovery. Just like Axon in your 360 anchored system acts as your end users, your business's language and policy reference. The right brain, that's where creativity, inquiry, and discovery live. It's like EDC, the catalog where your end business users process vocabularies of their knowledge domains that they live in daily against the available information and knowledge resources of your business. With this context in place, and any of your business users' questions answered so that we're clear and on the same page, let's move the group into narrowing of that large why. Saving these artifacts as the one visual and reference we'll come back to again and again at the beginning of meetings, when reviewing designs, as part of UA testing, when rolling out to new user groups, any of those times we're interacting with our business to keep us all grounded in a common what of the 360 system, so our scales and vocabularies are always aligned in that handshake and not operating in our own silos. With the system framework commonly understood, let's move the group towards a shared vocabulary, a crosswalk between the business and IT, if you will, that allows the business team to understand how their needs are expressed in and handled by the system, and the implementation team to understand which data is needed and why it's needed. Best practice number 3, create a shared vocabulary against this framework, thereby enabling the connected team to now focus on immediate needs of both teams and lead us to a shared, achievable initial MVP. Product managers speak for minimum viable product, or the smallest implementation the business needs to achieve first value that is also extensible to a roadmapable product enhancement-based growth chart. Let's start with our too big from a few slides ago of to maximize per vehicle revenue by ensuring maximum lease, rental, sale, and resale value across each vehicle's life cycle in a way that protects the privacy of our individual customers and doesn't expose our business to excessive liability based on what our customers do in the vehicles while they have them. Whew, that's a long sentence. Just its length tells you it's too big. So how do we narrow? Well, we start by modeling some entities. Yellow here, the 360 entities or the objects that exist in both the real world and in the representational worlds mapped against 360. Well, we've got products, vehicles. This is an automobile manufacturer that put this out. But we've also got lease, rental, sale, and resale agreements. Right? This is an automobile manufacturer and it's automotive credit on. One makes the vehicles, the other sells them. The interaction of their 360 systems is important and part of first value. We've got customers, the buyers of the vehicles and the signers of those agreements. But in this focus group, one wants to ask a little bit more of the business. Are these customers alike across the two divisions, manufacturing and credit? Are they alike across product types, both vehicle types and agreement types, lease, rental, sale, and resale? I don't see any suppliers. So I assume as IT, that's not pertinent to current pressing foundational business questions. So I can place it later in the roadmap. However, if we want to avoid those worst case scenarios, now's the time to validate this assumption with the business. Make sure you've not missed something. Green then is the business value. Maximize revenue. That's a large statement and we want to get to an MVP. So one wants to ask the business a few questions. What type of revenue? What domains impact revenue of this type? And red, well, that's risk. Risk impacts value. Risk here is the liability based on what customers do with and in vehicles while they have them. Yet again, I want to ask the business a few focusing questions. How does this impact revenue? Must this be addressed to achieve first value? What domains are part of these risks? You start to get the feeling then of the types of questions you're asking your business against the backdrop of the 360 what, and while trying to narrow their why so you can get to your how. And you want to do all of this, of course, before you get to your how. And you can see how this basic semantic exercise of walking through the big why with the business focus group you assembled can help you narrow, stack rank, and move forward quickly as you define an achievable MVP. In real life, this type of exercise against this question helped the manufacturing and credit divisions of an automotive company flesh out a foundational definitional need. Agreement on commercial customers and commercial customer subtypes, fleet and small business, versus individual customers. This is something that was being handled at present by disconnected spreadsheets in multiple departments as each pursued their discipline's idea of how best to maximize revenue. The focus group actually pointed out that business people weren't talking well amongst themselves, let alone to IT. With this realization, the business people were able to work up front together while IT was finalizing the purchase and installing software so that they were prepared to meet IT at kickoff to come with one foundational definition across key domains which have the greatest impact on top line revenue, commercial customers. An activity that greatly simplified their initial implementation, IT's initial implementation, by limiting sources, increasing quality, decreasing match merge overhead duplicates and overlap, therein increasing performance and decreasing cost. And all of this happened before a single hand touched a keyboard to configure in 3 sessions against the domains of the business. I'll show you some examples of key artifacts later, just before Q&A, including the stakeholder diagram and influence matrix. But let's move this narrowed why into connection with 360 entities. Step 2, connect the 360 entities. to the entities and attributes in the 360 system required to achieve the narrowed why of your MVP. In essence, we've already connected the real world objects of your business to the narrowed business why required to execute the MVP that solves this narrowed why inside your 360 anchored information and knowledge product platform. Now it's time to flesh out the data model of these real world objects against the Informatica 360 entities so they're executed in a way that pulls the right data at the right time with the right quality against the right virtual objects to populate the needed identity stores to answer the business people's essential questions in a common, defensible way against the actual data of your business to ensure they, the business people, accurately respond to the business challenges outlined in their narrowed whys. And from there, mapping initial population and ongoing update of these entities in a way that ensures both accuracy and provides a traceable lineage for the required and desired audit trails that allow you to ensure an extensible path to executing a system that is capable of, in the specific instance of our last narrowed why, protecting the privacy of our individual customers so that our business is not exposed to excessive liability due to what our customers do in the vehicles while they have them, and ensuring our business is not disrupted and or fined should a governing body or regulatory agency impose upon our organization an overly onerous requirement to supply related data to them. But those are deeper technical topics are better handled in another session by another Tech Tuesday, or perhaps an Informatica University learning group that's intended for the specific technical resources on your team that complete those technical configurations and setups based on the information the product manager has elicited. So today, with the little time we have left, I want to focus more on the oft overlooked portions of this work that ensure positive user experience and viral spread through your business with the full business adoption you're looking for, the parts of this process that connect you in IT to the business. Towards that end, let's look at what user experience is and think about how we might most easily correct a common shared mistake of overlooking it in the initial phases of 360 Anchor's system development. User experience includes everything our business users do that is related to the 360 anchored information system we are implementing, including how it fits into their overall workflow and the steps they take before and after the system is actually in use. It includes how those interactions will change over time as the business user's usage evolves and the system and business change. After all, the one thing I remember vividly from my PM days is just how quickly users change and evolve once they get a better tool, something better than those sneakernet spreadsheets, sometimes even changing within weeks or months, completely changing the behaviors they used to solve their whys in the past, given that they now have access to a better tool, the system and information products you designed to answer their needs. Which leads me to another pro tip. Be careful to limit your MVP to the minimum features and capabilities needed to achieve the needed first value. You don't want to overdevelop. Your users are going to change. You want to give them just enough to change so your next development takes them where they need to go and doesn't trap them in the past. This simple tip saves significant rework and redesign once users change and say things like, oh yeah, when I first talked to you, I thought I needed X, but now that I have reliable fast access to trusted resource Z, I never go to X as my backup. In fact, I never even need that data anymore. Remember, positive user experience entails a smooth and clear beginning experience and a clear navigational history. Users must be able to start using the system and realizing value as quickly as possible. From that point, good user experience continues refining customer interactions and user interactions, removing points of friction for them against their workflows, and minimizing the required steps needed to complete their main tasks, their key business activities that, of course, impact that value. As your system matures beyond MVP, good user experience extends beyond what you initially started with, assisting with related tasks that directly impact the value proposition we're starting here and the satisfaction of the actual system experience, building consistency and providing as much contextual guidance as possible. If we're to successfully enhance users' platform-enabled experiences, we must First, make their entire journey to solving their why pleasant and productive, both in the MVP and in that roadmap we create as part of thinking and acting like a product manager. We must begin by highlighting the value of our platform so it's clear what capabilities and benefits our implemented system offers potentially to ensure the viral spread, and currently your super user early adopter patient zeros, and that this value proposition is clearly desirable to them in their daily business activities. And as my former UX specialist always liked to tell me when I was a product manager, the easiest way to achieve this is to make this value discoverable and accessible, which is exactly what I believe we're doing in step one with our narrowing and connection to real world objects that our technical people could then, as a part of technical platform configuration, population, update, and extension, execute upon. And our teams should extend, and your teams should extend your interactions with the business team across the development lifecycle with design reviews, build updates, shared UAT testing, and future focus groups as you enhance and extend your system. You should do this on a regular basis with your business leaders, the ones you started developing relationships with in these initial focus groups, and who over time should populate your governance boards. In fact, I can still hear those specialists tell me, clear wording and imagery, as well as short and simple paths to understand the system's potential, such as those provided earlier in this presentation, customized to the domain and stakeholders of your business, are the best way to spur engagement and usage of the system. And since the premise of today's session is positive user experience, let's narrow one more of these two big whys to illustrate how the simplest way to achieve transformational business engagement starts with a shared why. Remember back to best practice number 3, create a shared vocabulary against this framework, thereby enabling the connected team to now focus on immediate needs for both teams and to lead us to a shared achievable MVP. So, to our second arrow. To ensure better business continuity during the pandemic and uncertain business climate of increasing regulation and gas prices through better supplier governance and reduced delivery fees. Let's go with our color coding again, starting with entities. And I only see one in this sentence, supplier, the main entity for this question. And one will want to ask the business some more questions in the focus group about supplier, such as what they mean by supplier governance, including whether or not they desire S360 to be the system of origin for suppliers, or if they have another transactional or governance system already in place, be it online or on paper, to serve that purpose. And if so, what is that system? How does it work? And what's its data model? Is it homegrown, end of life, or from another supplier? And what I'll kind of want to ask, isn't there an entity missing, like perhaps products? How are we going to do this without products? You want to ask the business such questions to narrow this as which products suffer from supplier issues that interrupt our smooth delivery of them to the supply chain? What products are currently impacting our business continuity in a negative way to help better define it? And then customers is missing. It may not be pertinent to current pressing foundational business issues, so it can be placed later in the roadmap, but you do want to validate this assumption with the business. And finally, if we're talking about delivery fees and gas prices and moving things around and business continuity related to suppliers, we probably need location. Though it's not noted here, it is implied by all of these things, and it'll be important for both suppliers and manufacturing plants that consume the supplier materials in all likelihood. We'll want to ask the business and discuss them a bit. Green. Green is our business value. Better business continuity. But again, what does that mean? We need to ask the business a few questions. Can you define better? Please define better. Not can. Of course they can, please. How do you define business continuity today? Do you expect that this will change as the business climate changes? You juxtapose them in your statement. And finally, red risk, which is of course part of business value, increasing regulation and gas prices. We want to ask the business, how does this impact business continuity? Must this be addressed to achieve first value? What domains are these risks the biggest part of? In real life, this exercise against this question helped manufacturer supplying engines to automotive manufacturers, those earlier whys, flesh out the capabilities in their homegrown system that were vital to the business and that they, in IT, needed to ensure were maintained or extended in their S360 implementation. It also helped identify needed enhancements to X360 that were actually on Informatica's scheduled roadmap, but not scheduled in a time frame that made them part of the MVP. And several data needs that they internally needed to work with their business to identify sources for in their transactional systems prior to connecting to their entities and creating their maps. With these realizations, the IT team was able to proactively define an MVP, an appropriate road map that met businesses' first value needs and timelines without introducing the problematic delays or feature sets that disrupt the business's initial user experience and ensured a positive continued relationship with the business moving forward. All before a single hand touched a keyboard in a few sessions against the domains and why of the business. So step 3, what do? We enhance that user experience. We tweak it and extend it. And the simple answer here is it's really not that much different than how we got here. We're going to use the same tools and techniques. Because, just a reminder, that bears repeating, even if I'm starting to sound like a broken record, I've just watched too many teams forget this, only to teeter on the brink of one of those worst case scenarios we started with. We're not building a field of dreams. Business users will not come just because IT builds it. They will only give up their sneaker nets and siloed spreadsheets if they have a positive user experience. And a positive user experience, as we've said before, entails a smooth and clear beginning experience and a clear navigational hierarchy. It includes their entire workflow and allows them to realize value quickly in their real seats doing the real work of their jobs. It continues, refining customer interactions by removing points of friction for them and minimizing the required steps to complete their various tasks. It extends beyond the initial MVP, assisting them with related tasks that directly impact the value proposition of their role and their satisfaction of the actual system experience, building consistency and providing as much contextual guidance as possible. So, to those few examples I promised. An onion diagram. Stakeholder diagram of the business and IT stakeholders. This happens to be the one I use with the implementation team, so it's biased towards mine. But basically, you can say, like that rock in the pond, it drops out and out and out as you get farther from the core team. But you have a core team, IT and business. You're going to have leads on those teams, right? Our patient zeros. Those teams are going to have seconds that take it out to a larger group. You're going to move out to project and initiative supports, software and domain and knowledge supports, all the way up to executive supports, so that finger, when it's dropped in, is supported throughout the whole group. I'm recording it here. I know their names. I know their type. I know their contact information. I understand what they do, and I record that in my project in the beginning and across the implementation, as we said earlier. And I personally like to use a power matrix, the business motivations and influence, right? What are they interested in? How much influence can they result? And how do I need to communicate with them? I tend to also not just use a classic power matrix. And again, the web's a beautiful site. You can look up either of these and find complete YouTubes, excuse me, in your first Google search. But as I said, I like to add to this. I like to add to this the relationships amongst them so I can better track how this communication is going to spread. Because if I'm doing this right, and I'm going to show my age here, it looks to me like that old Brett commercial from the 70s and 80s, and one user tells one user who tells another, who tells another, who tells another, and suddenly we're filling up that screen with tiny and tinier boxes of people who believe they can't do their jobs without our 360 anchored system that tells them who their customers, suppliers are, who uses their products, all those things they need to answer those business questions we started. And with that, on to our QA.
Microservices to simplify application integration. That's our cloud application integration, and data integration across the platform, cloud data integration. The 360s are added or additional microservices specific to master data management domains, product 360, supplier 360, customer 360, reference 360, and multi-domain master data. Another question we got was if I could give an example of how to choose patient zeros. I talked a lot about it and what you wanted to look for in them, but I didn't ask how do you choose. The best way to answer this is perhaps by a recent example from a financial services firm. So a financial services firm, in contacting and working with their business, they had entities of contract and investments as well as 13 others. They picked those two because contract is connected to the most groups, can traverse the farthest. Nobody in their business, maybe one domain, does anything without contracts. And what they sell are investments. They then talked to the groups, and in the groups they found the manager, they gave them a readiness assessment, and they found out that investments had a leader who was very well respected, connected to top line revenue in the company because they were selling those instruments, and her environment was really ready. She was talking about the links between different entities. They were really pushing the envelope of those things. When they talked to contract, they found that contract had actually had, I can't remember if it was Deloitte or Accenture, but they had had a services integrator in to help assess their readiness, and they had started some of this work in a spreadsheet. So they ended up picking up those two, one that's a cost center, one that is a profit center, both of which were connected to top line revenue and first value for this firm, and they had them work together in the focus groups. Then they brought them back actually with the POC, and they just kept moving it out virally that way. And it's one that I've seen recently in the last couple of quarters that was just really on point. And the important point, they were on point not because they started that way, but because they had had an initiative that suffered from one of those worst case scenarios and didn't get off the ground fast enough. And so they paused and came back and said, can we do this better? And this is how they chose to do that better. I think we're about at time. Yes, Verinda?
Yes, thank you, Nanette. I think we have addressed all the questions, but if we have failed to answer any of the questions, we'll get back to you right after the session. Just wanted to call out that the session is being recorded and will be available in the Informatica Support YouTube channel and the Success portal, where you can download the slide deck as well. Also, please put in your feedbacks and suggestions for the session. And if you have any suggestions for the future sessions, please let us know through the post-webinar survey. We will hear your opinion and suggestions through that. Thanks once again, Nanette, for this wonderful session. Thanks everyone for joining. See you on our next Tech Tuesdays. Bye.